The song arrived in a manila envelope, and Tina Turner almost did not listen to it. It was the spring of 1983, and she was 43 years old, and the envelope was one of dozens that passed through the management office in any given week. Most of them were not the song. Most of them were the accumulated hope of the music industry moving its material from the people who wrote it to the people who might be able to use it. And most of that material was set aside after a single listen and not thought about again. The industry ran on this, on the enormous volume of material that did not become anything, on the hundreds of songs that were heard and considered and placed back in their envelopes while the people who had written them went back to their desks and started over. This one had already been set aside twice. The song was called What's Love Got to Do With It? It had been written by two British songwriters named Britten and Lyle, who had been working in the professional machinery of pop music for more than a decade, writing for other people, producing for other people, sending their work out into the world in envelopes like this one and waiting to see where it landed. They were good at what they did. They had chart history, Grammy nominations, the accumulated credibility of people who understood what a song needed to be to move through the radio and find the people it was meant to find. What's Love Got to Do With It was, by any professional measure, a well-constructed piece of work. It had been offered to Phyllis Hyman. She had passed on it. Phyllis Hyman was a soprano of extraordinary range, a singer whose voice could do things that most voices could not do, who had spent years being underpaid and underestimated by an industry that did not know what to do with genuine greatness when it arrived in a form it hadn't expected. She had heard the song and decided it was not hers. This was not a failure of judgment. Artists develop, over years of working with material, an instinct about what belongs to them and what does not, what their voice can do something true with and what it cannot. Phyllis Hyman's instinct said this song was not hers. Cliff Richard had passed on it. Bucks Fizz had gone further, had actually recorded a demo of it, had taken it into the studio and laid down a version, and had still passed on it. The song had been recorded and considered and rejected. It sat in the file of things that had not found their artist. Roger Davies had it now. Roger Davies had been managing Tina Turner since 1980, which meant he had been managing her through the years that were not the good years. The years after Ike and before the comeback. The years of hotel ballrooms and Las Vegas casinos and the slow, grinding work of rebuilding something from material that the industry had largely written off. He had believed in her during all of it. This was not sentiment. Roger Davies was not a sentimental man in the music industry sense. He was a man who understood what Tina Turner was capable of, and who had spent 3 years constructing the conditions in which that capability might be allowed to demonstrate itself. He believed in her the way you believe in something when the evidence is clear and only the circumstances have been wrong. The circumstances were beginning to change. In late 1982, she had recorded a cover of Al Green's Let's Stay Together with the British electronic group BEF, a version that had done something unexpected, which was to become a genuine hit in the United Kingdom. Not a massive hit, not the kind of hit that rewrites careers, but a real one. A top 10 single in the UK, which was more than anyone had managed to give her in years. Import copies had begun to move in the United States. Capitol Records, a subsidiary of EMI, had taken notice. The machinery of reconsideration was in motion. Roger Davies was building on it. He had a plan, and the plan required a song, not a cover, not an exercise in proving what Tina Turner could do with someone else's material, but a song that would be hers, that would define not just an album, but a moment, that would answer the question the industry had been asking about her for the better part of a decade in the specific, undeniable way that a #1 single answers a question. He had been listening to everything. He had been through more envelopes than he could count. He listened to What's Love Got to Do With It? He heard it immediately. Not the song as it was, not the demo as Britten and Lyle had constructed it, the clean, commercial British pop arrangement that had been good enough to take to Phyllis Hyman and Cliff Richard and Bucks Fizz, and not good enough to be chosen by any of them. He heard what it could become. He heard Tina's voice on it, heard, in the specific way that good managers hear things, the space inside the song where her voice would go, and what it would do when it got there. The song was asking for something that none of the previous artists had been able to give it. Roger Davies heard what it was asking for. He took it to Tina. She did not want to record it. This was not stubbornness. This was something more specific and more defensible. This was the considered judgment of a woman who had been in the music for 25 years and who had developed, in those 25 years, a very clear understanding of what she was. She was a rock and roll singer. She was a soul singer. She was the woman who had done Proud Mary and Nutbush City Limits and River Deep, Mountain High, who had been doing those things with her entire body and voice for a quarter of a century. What's Love Got to Do With It was a pop song. A clean, crafted, radio-friendly British pop song. It was not what she did. She said, "This is not my kind of music." She said, "I'm a rock singer." Roger Davies said, "Listen to it again." She listened to it again. And then again. The process of changing your mind about a song is not a dramatic process. It does not happen in a single moment of revelation. The music does not suddenly reveal its hidden quality, and the artist does not suddenly understand what they had been missing. It is slower than that. It is the process of a song working on you over multiple listenings, of the melody finding the pathways in your memory that melodies find when they are doing what melodies do, of the words beginning to mean something specific rather than something general. What's Love Got to Do With It worked on Tina Turner over days. It found something. Not the something that the song's writers had put there. Not the light commercial pop sensibility that Terry Britten and Lyle had intended when they constructed it in the specific tradition of British chart music. Something else. Something that Tina Turner's life had placed in the space where the song was asking for something to be placed. Something that had to do with what she knew about love, specifically, from the inside of a life that had given her more information about love than most people receive. She had been married to Ike Turner for 16 years. She had stayed in that marriage for reasons that the outside world had never fully understood, and that she had spent years explaining in the specific, careful language of a woman who was not asking for sympathy, but was trying to account for something honestly. She had stayed because the money was his, and the band was his, and the name was his, and leaving meant leaving all of it, which meant having nothing, which was a different kind of impossible from the one she was already living. She had stayed until she could not stay anymore, and then she had left, with 36 cents and a mobile card on a Dallas freeway. She knew what love got to do with it. Not the abstract, romantic version of that knowledge. Not the love of songs and films and greeting cards, but the specific, textured, sometimes brutal knowledge of someone who had loved in the wrong direction for 16 years and had survived it, and was now standing on the other side of it, trying to understand what any of it meant. The song was asking a question that she had been living the answer to for a very long time. She recorded the demo. The recording session was not at a grand studio, not at the kind of facility that the record industry reserves for its most important projects. It was a smaller session, a working session, the kind of thing you do to prove a concept rather than to make a final product. Tina Turner walked into the room with the song she had been resisting for weeks, and she sang it. The demo was not the record. But in the demo, you could hear it. The specific quality that What's Love Got to Do With It had been missing in every previous version, and every previous consideration by every previous artist who had been offered it and passed on it. The quality was not technical. It was not a matter of range or production or the arrangement of instruments. It was the quality of a voice that had earned the right to ask the question the song was asking. Phyllis Hyman had not earned it that way. Cliff Richard had not earned it that way. Bucks Fizz had certainly not earned it that way. Tina Turner had earned it the hard way. Roger Davies sent the demo to Capitol Records. Capitol Records heard what Roger Davies had heard. The recording sessions for Private Dancer began in the autumn of 1983. What's Love Got to Do With It was recorded with Terry Britten producing, the same man who had written it and failed to place it and sent it out in envelopes and received it back and sent it out again. He produced it for the woman who had not wanted to record it, in the specific, focused way of someone who understands that the collaboration is working and does not want to interfere with the thing that is working by overthinking it. The record was released in May 1984. What's Love Got to Do With It entered the Billboard Hot 100 and climbed the way records climb when they have found their moment, steadily, irreversibly, with the specific logic of something that the listening public has decided it cannot do without. It reached #1. It stayed there for 3 weeks. It was, at the time of its release, the first #1 single on the Billboard Hot 100 by a solo female artist over the age of 40. Tina Turner was 44 years old. At the 1985 Grammy Awards, held at the Shrine Auditorium in Los Angeles, What's Love Got to Do with It won Record of the Year. It won Song of the Year for Terry Britten and Graham Lyle, the two British songwriters who had written it and sent it out in manila envelopes, and watched it come back twice before it found the woman it had been waiting for. Tina Turner won Best Female Pop Vocal Performance. The song that had been rejected by Phyllis Hyman and Cliff Richard and Bucks Fizz, the song that the woman who would eventually sing it had not wanted to record, had become the signature of the greatest comeback in the history of popular music. It had been waiting for the right voice. Not the most technically capable voice, not the voice with the most range, or the most training, or the most commercial appeal. The voice that had lived the question the song was asking. The voice that could sing What Love's Got to Do with It from the inside of actually knowing. From the inside of 16 years and a Dallas freeway and 36 cents and the long, unglamorous work of becoming the person who survived all of it. Phyllis Hyman passed on it. Cliff Richard passed on it. Bucks Fizz recorded a demo and passed on it. Tina Turner almost did not listen to it. And then she did. If this story stayed with you, share it with someone who deserves to hear it today. Subscribe for more stories about the human beings behind music's greatest legends. The songs that almost weren't, the demos that came back, the artists who almost said no. Hit the notification bell so you never miss one of these stories.